James Dolan sitting down for a rare interview, the friendly confines of the Roommates pod. He was being interviewed by Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson. And I'm sure you saw it, Troy. And as someone who has rooted hard for this team for a long time, followed this team for a long time, what were your impressions of the owner?
It's James Dolan, I feel like, has had the biggest story with the fans across the league, because initially, if you followed this team for a long time and you saw Dolan's involvement with the team a couple of years ago, you have a certain feeling about him. But he's been kind of not gone, but not around the Knicks for a while. You're not seeing him, kind of out of sight. But then sometimes you see him outside of some of the other issues that happen, obviously, around the NBA. But apart from that, he's not really doing much with it. You don't really see him a lot, or not around the team a lot. So you don't know what's going on. In this interview, I felt like it was a huge, opening for fans who don't really know Dolan, know what's been happening with the team or what's been going on with the team, to understand where he is, his role, Leon Rose, where he is, and his faith in the team and everything that he spoke about with this current roster. One of the biggest things, and one of my takeaways from the interview, is the fact that he said with this team, he expects them to be together for the long haul, for the long term, play many, many seasons together. And the reason I mentioned that, I'm sure you know it as well too, Ian. There's a number of reports out there almost weekly with, the Knicks linked to this star or that star or this star, and maybe potential moves that could happen in the offseason. But hearing Dolan say that, it kind of made you think to yourself, well, this is the team that we have moving forward. And if that's the case, what can we add to it to be better? Because I do agree with Tim in that regard, that the Knicks do have this squad and it is good. They can compete, but to what level? How far before they reach their ceiling? Because I do think there is some things that are still needed to add here. But as James Dolan mentioned in that interview, it's likely this is the team that we're going to have for the long run moving forward.
I would just add there quickly that, yes, Dolan did say that, and obviously he signs off on everything that ends up being decided. But any kind of big decision there, I think, would be Leon Rose's to really make. And so I just think that going into the postseason, you see how things shake out. You see if anything shakes loose. There are nuclear options there that I don't think the Knicks want to do, but they are there if certain situations arise and you flame out in the postseason. So I wouldn't necessarily, set in stone the idea that everybody who's here now is going to be here the next 4 or 5 years. Tim, what did you take away from Dolan's interview there?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the main takeaway in general, right? On Hoop Collective, we have a long-standing motto that I coined, which is actions over words. And I don't really care what James Dolan said on the Roommates podcast, right? The question will be, what does he decide to do if the Knicks get swept in the second round, if they lose in the first round, if they lose in 7 games in the second round, if they make the conference finals, right? Whatever the end of the season is, that's, to me, and what their reaction is to that, that's what's going to matter. It's very easy to go on the Roommates pod and say, hey, you guys and none of your teammates are ever getting traded. It's going to be great. It would be quite something, even by Dolan standards, to go on there and say everybody's on watch on a podcast with 2 of his players. So let's wait and see what happens this spring and summer if the Knicks fall short again. Because look, let's go back to last summer. The weird thing about the moves the Knicks made, in my opinion, was there was no clamoring for the Knicks to do anything. Troy and every other Knicks fan was very happy with where the team was. They finally had some sustained success. They made the second round a couple of years in a row, right? There wasn't any disappointment even at losing to Indiana. The whole team got hurt. They're oh, yeah, whatever. Everybody got hurt, and it happens, and we'll come back next year and see where the Knicks are at. Well, then they turn around and trade everything they had nailed down for Karl Towns and Mikal Bridges. Well, that naturally brings expectations of this team is going to take steps forward. And if they don't take steps forward or they take a step backward, then what's the reaction to that going to be? I think we would all agree there shouldn't be a dramatic reaction to that. It should just be, all right, let's just keep moving forward and try to add some depth pieces and see what it looks like next year. But I don't think we can guarantee that there won't be any dramatic reactions. We've all been around New York and around the Knicks long enough. So, it all goes back to the same thing, which is actions over words. And let's see what happens in April, May, and June on in the court. And then let's see what happens in May, June, and July off the court as a result of whatever does happen.
Right, right. And I did think it was interesting, too, that Dolan talked about a succession plan. No plans to sell either the Knicks or the Rangers, would like to keep it in the family. He's mentioned that in the past, and just him reiterating it lets you know kind of what the future is with this team. And I don't know, where the team is going to go, who inherits it, but Quentin Dolan, one of Jim Dolan's sons, has a high-ranking position at MSG Sports, and by all accounts is doing a great job. So it'll be interesting to see where that shakes out years from now. But in the here and now, Troy, when you hear your owner talk about Leon Rose the way he did, just your thoughts on the hire and what he said on the roommates pod about hiring Leon and his rationale behind it.
I thought that with Dolan regarding Leon, the fact when he had the call with him and he said that it was a really easy decision regarding Leon just accepting it. And I think when Jalen Brunson was talking about it and he said, his agent basically left him. And the way he said it was that he was happy for him because he was going to New York. And when he joined New York, he said that he didn't think Leon Rose would have ever took this opportunity or done this unless it was for a team like the New York Knicks. And I think that tells you what it means to bring or win a championship and bring it to New York, how much of a feeling and a meaning that is to anybody in sports, regarding if you're a player or an executive, whatever it is. That's exactly what I think Leon Rose was hired here for. And I think he even mentioned it. He has executed his plan to exactly the way he said he was going to do it. And a lot of times when, Dolan speaks about these things, I listen to it because I absolutely believe what he's saying here. And when he said that Leon Rose made all these moves and the plan went exactly as you said it was going to go, I was actually pretty shocked by that. Could not believe it. And I think Leon Rose has done a good job. And I think that's exactly what Dolan basically said during that entire interview.
Yeah, some fun stuff there. I always appreciate when we see James Dolan on camera doing interviews. Doesn't happen often, but it's always interesting when it does.